Hi, my name is Chris Skinner, and some of you may already know me, but if you don't, I do a lot of things around the future of banking and technology. I write a daily blog at thefinancer.com every single day about what's happening in the world of the future of banking and technology. I also chair the Financial Services Club, Nordic Future Innovation, and I'm a non-executive director with 11FS and on the advisory board of quite a lot of other companies. But rather than boring you with all that, let's get into what's happening right now, which is the challenges of the 2020s, of which you already know many of them because they're in front of you right now today. The main challenge being how do you deal with a world that's stuck at home? That's been a big question for everybody since March 2020 in Europe and America, because we've all been stuck at home as workers, as customers, as investors, as people dealing with the whole range of things that we need to deal with in our daily lives. We're being serviced at home, delivered at home, ordering at home, doing finances from home. Everything is from home. And in many ways, that's why 2020 has delivered 2030 10 years early, because there's been a lot of discussion around home working and home service for the last decade or two, but no action. About 80 to 90% of most workers in all countries worked in offices until March 2020, and now they work at home. And in finance, that's been quite a big challenge because a lot of what we do in finance is quite secretive and it needs to be protected and secured and structured. And most bank employees were not allowed to work from home for that reason. They had to work in the office. And yet, since March 2020, there's been a pivot rapidly towards cloud computing to allow working from home and access to customer data from home. But there's a big difference between being on the cloud and being in the cloud. There's a big difference between being cloud-based and cloud native. And I make this point specifically because so many companies, not just in banking, but across retail, manufacturing, and other industries, were talking about using cloud computing for the last decade, but they weren't committed. And in fact, many of the decisions that have been made in the last year have been tactically made to allow the access to employees working from home using cloud. And that's been bubbling for maybe a decade, but it's not actually strategically committing to cloud. It's tactically committing to cloud. And that's a big difference in that the major delineation between companies that are doing well right now and doing badly are those that were truly digital and those that were trying to be digital. Now, you may know who the truly digital companies are, but just to be explicit, it's the Amazons of this world, the Alibabas of this world, the Alphabets, the Facebooks, the Apples, the Tencents. And these are all the companies that are having huge spikes in valuations. In fact, you may not have even seen it, but PayPal the other day had a valuation higher than Bank of America, and Square, which is a payments processing company that only came around in the last decade, is valued at more than Goldman Sachs because they're truly digital. They were born on the internet. They're cloud native. They're digital to the core. And I don't use these terms lightly, but I use them to specify what is truly digital versus trying to be digital. Truly digital is truly based on cloud. It's truly native to the internet. It's been born on the internet. It understands the reach of the internet. Whereas trying to be digital are often actually companies that were born in the industrial era that have very physical structures in offices and paper processing, and they're trying to adapt those to the internet. They are evolving to the internet. They're cloud-based, but they're not cloud native. They're doing digital, but they're not digital at the core. And this is something that will be a big factor in competition and service and talent attraction for the next decade, because we need to identify companies that are really understanding how the internet works and how the products and services and reach of the internet works for that industry versus those that clearly don't understand it. For me, there's been a clear view around the institutions that don't understand digital and the internet, even though they claim to, when March happened and everything shut down. I deal with one of the largest UK banks that claims to be digital. And yet, when the lockdown occurred, they have an offshore call center in India. And in India, they had 4 hours notice about the lockdown. So the customer contact center shut down with 4 hours notice. There's no backup in Britain because in Britain, again, everything had closed down as well, but equally they didn't have a backup for their offshore call center. And so customer contact via the telephone was impossible. And it still is pretty much impossible unless the customer is willing to wait for more than 1 hour. And that to me typifies the companies that were not ready. In fact, a lot of companies were not ready for what we're doing today because they had critical, uh, mission critical planning and disaster recovery for a physical office. But the planning was for another physical office. It wasn't for moving to cloud, having everyone working from home. And the reason why I labor that point a little bit is because as we look to the next decade and post-lockdown, post-pandemic, there's a number of factors that come into play. One specific one is what I call the great unlock. And that when we move into the post-pandemic environment and people feel happy to move around in towns and cities and across countries using airplanes again, there's a huge demand for people who were unhappy with what happened during lockdown to switch to other financial providers, and they will. Not just individuals, but businesses, both small and large, because there's been a disaster because there wasn't a disaster plan. And what disaster plan there was another office, which didn't work. So there's a huge pent up demand during the great unlock to move to other financial providers, other providers of services that did understand the digital reach of services. More than this, there's also going to be a long-term impact. I often talk about the fact that if you were building a business for a permanent lockdown and all employees and customers at home, what business would you build? And does it look anything like the business you have today? Because that is actually the business that you need to build, a business built for a permanent, never-ending lockdown. We're not going to have a permanent, never-ending lockdown, but if you think about the experience that we've all been through, then we truly now understand what digital means. Digital at home, digital service, digital work, digital everything in one office in your home base. That's what digital is. That's really what digital means. But it means a little bit more than this. Right now, we're going through one of the biggest um, share sales in the world with Ant Group. And you may know Ant Group, big Chinese company that runs Alipay, the largest payments processor in China. And actually, it does move a lot of money outside China because it operates in India, Pakistan, Thailand, South Korea, Singapore, and other regions, Indonesia. And I know them very well because I wrote a lot about them in my 2018 book, Digital Human, and I've followed them ever since. And Jack Ma, who's the founder of Alibaba, and Alipay Ant Group is a spin-off of Alibaba, said during the IPO something that really resonated with me, which is that the European and American financial system is like an old people's club, an old person's club. It's the old network, the old boys, the old systems, the legacy world. It really is a legacy heritage world. Whereas when you look at what Ant Group is doing and what the internet can achieve, using services for finance and financial inclusion, then it reaches the lakes, rivers, streams, and brooks that were unreachable before. And that's his phrase, the lakes, rivers, streams, and brooks. And that really resonated, because you think about what we can do with the internet today. It can reach the unreachable. It can touch everybody, no matter how remote, no matter how poor, and include them in the network. And in doing that, you have to rethink the products and the services that you're providing. You don't just do what you always did. You have to do business as unusual, not just business as usual. You have to think about products for the internet age. A great example of thinking about products for the internet age is insurance based on usage. And so there's a number of companies now springing up that do real-time insurance services based on the amount of time that you want to use your car, or the amount of time that you want to use your guitar, or the amount of time that you want to go out of the house with your camera. And that's a really interesting development, because the only reason why insurance was based on annuity products and annual insurance product is because it used to be too expensive to renew every year and in a human contact physical form. So that's the reason why it was every year rather than every day. But with digital, you can do every day, every minute, every hour insurance. You can do real time everything. And so insurance is being deconstructed and reconstructed based on the internet reaching the lakes, pools, and rivers that it never could reach before, using real-time services. And that's happening in every aspect of finance. It's not just in insurance, it's in every area of financial services. Rethinking the products, rethinking the services, thinking about them as cheap, real-time, all the time, all available every day, into the home, into the office, wherever you are, all the time, anytime, anywhere. And that vision has been around for a long time, but we've been forced with the pandemic to deliver that vision. And if we haven't delivered, the customer knows, the employee knows. And post-pandemic is going to be even more obvious. So if I look to the future, then I think there's some interesting developments happening right now, which is you have to focus upon the digital model, the idea that this is permanent, that we'll never leave home. Your employees, your business is built for the network, not built for an office. You will always have to deal with digital connectivity and digital reach to every corner and crevice of the universe of the world, or the universe of the Nordic region. You can reach people in every area of Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Finland. You can reach the unreachable. And if that's true, then you build your business for that model. You build your business for truly digital, truly internet network based, truly dealing with every nook and cranny of the universe that you can never deal with before, and doing it in real time with products and services that are built for real time networking, not for annuity, not for physical, not for face to face, but built for device to device. And in fact, that's a key point for the future. It's not just dealing with the individual, the customer, the experience. It's dealing with everything around that individual and that customer and that experience. It's dealing with all of their devices, their car, their home, their refrigerator, their partner, whatever they have that has network connectivity. That's the Internet of Things. So I could talk for ages, and I guess I'll finish by saying, if you're struggling with the world we live in today, and you have a business that was built for physical and analog that's trying to adapt and try to be digital, then you really should read my books. Shameless plug. But my latest one is doing digital, and I interviewed JP Morgan Chase, ING, BBVA, China Merchants Bank, DBS, as 5 of the biggest banks in the world that were trying to be digital. They haven't achieved it. It's a never-ending journey. It doesn't stop. But the lessons learned from those 5 big banks, along with my experiences of many years, will give you at least a bit of a map and a guideline about how to get there if you're not already there. Or even if you think you're already there, you'll probably find out something new. So thanks for listening to me, and thanks to GTI for inviting me along. And I look forward to hearing from you in the very near future. Bye for now.